welcome to Market. Hello and welcome to Market Insight, where we feed you with the necessary information about the commodity market as well as the currency market. I'm Adesoa Iromosele, and today we will be discussing the rising cost in commodity and its effect on consumer spending. Yes, we all know that, of course, Nigeria has been battling with the issue of inflation on food and so many other commodities, and this has posed a very big challenge. And of course, businesses around the world, of course, are dealing with higher energy costs due to the Russian-Ukraine war. But here in Nigeria, businesses are facing challenges, like currency inflation, currency fluctuation, rising inflation, as well as increased insecurity. Now, these issues are affecting manufacturing and trade in the nation, leading to a slower growth. The deregulation of the oil sector and higher energy costs, unstable energy rates, high interest rates, inflation, and weak consumer demands are all contributing to this slowdown in our economy. And in the short term, manufacturing growth is expected to remain, somewhat weak, because people have less money to spend at this time. Now, fuel prices have also gone up by more than 200% since January, which is increasing cost for Nigerian businesses that rely on generators. Transportation is also a factor, because the cost of transportation have also been doubled since the renewal of the petrol subsidy. And of course, this has diverse effects on the businesses here in Nigeria. Now, the unfavorable, exchange rate has increased production costs significantly, because not less than 40% of raw materials, machines, and other inputs required for production are sourced using foreign exchange. And now the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, showed that Nigeria's inflation rose for the 12th straight month to a 20-year high of 28.92% from its previous 28.20% in November, causing Nigerians to prioritize their spending as well as their lifestyle. And an analysis, carried out showed that Nigeria is currently experiencing an inflation rate of about 33%. Yes, about 33% compared to the previous year. And this is disturbing, to say the least. And to discuss this issue, we have a guest, and he is Dr. Abidemi Adegboye, and he is an economics lecturer at the University of Lagos. Good morning to you, Dr. Abidemi. All right.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Now,
good morning. Thank you for having me.
An economics expert, how would you rate the Nigerian economy as of today?
Well, generally, things are not looking good for the economy as we speak. The economy is in one of its lowest ebb in recent times. As your introduction has stated, we are having some of the highest inflation rates, unemployment and underemployment at a very high level now. So we can say that we are having a combination of high inflation rates, which is of course not good for the economy, as well as high unemployment rate. Those are two devastating outcomes for an economy at a single time. So the economy is not looking good as we speak.
Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, the rise in food inflation on a year-on-year basis was caused by the increase in prices of oil, bread, cereal, potatoes, yam, and other tubers, fish, fruits, meat, vegetable, milk, cheese, and eggs. Okay, these are food products. So they're saying that the reason for this increased food inflation rate is due to the increase in price of all of this food items. Do you agree with this, or are there other factors you think have militated against the Nigerian economy increasing our inflation rate?
Okay, what the National Bureau of Statistics is actually implying is that the basket of goods used for computing or food inflation, that amongst them, these particular commodities that they have stated are the ones that have experienced noticeable price increase over the time. So those are the main components of the food basket, of the index basket, that are contributing to this inflation, which is essentially to be expected, because if you look at seasons, this is we are close to the planting season now, so generally it's expected that the prices of some of these commodities will go up. And although there are underlying reasons why the prices of these commodities are rising at a very high level this period. But essentially, these are the commodities. And of course, these are the main commodities that the Nigerians consume: yam, bread, and the rest of it. So they are the main commodities Nigerians consume. And if there's any increase in prices, in most of the times, they will be the main commodity that will be driving the increases in food inflation. So that is what the National Bureau of Statistics is saying. Although, like I said, there are basically underlying factors that are driving this. Of course, you mentioned some of them, both local and domestic and foreign. Exchange rates that is rising over the roof. Then we also have issues of transport costs, like you mentioned. So there are underlying reasons, but these are the main commodities that are contributing to inflation, food inflation in Nigeria.
What perspective? How does the National Bureau of Statistics come up with these figures? You know, he said the food inflation rate as of now is about 33%. Now, how do they come about it? And these items listed, are these the only items, you know, that add up to this inflation rate, or are there others? And how do they come about these specific items?
Okay, yeah, thank you. The NBS, generally there is the headline inflation, then there is that is computed using the consumer price index, where you use consumer goods, a basket of consumer goods, to form an index of a price level. Then there is the general inflation rate that includes both the consumer price index and the producer price index. But within the consumer price index, as the name implies, consumption, consumer goods, the most important segment of consumer price index that is used to derive headline inflation is the food issue. You know, food is a lot of, especially in this part of the world, over 70 to 80% of income is spent on food. So food is a critical aspect of the consumer price index. Now, in computing your food inflation, this NBS forms an index using what we call representative commodities, food commodities. Definitely, it is not possible to include all food commodities in this basket. So they use a representation of the major goods that are consumed in terms of the quantity or in terms of the regularity. So they make sure that they include these commodities and take their prices from time to time. That's why you will see month by month, they will release inflation inflation rates because they have a way of gathering data on these particular representative commodities, not all the food items, but the representative ones. So once the prices change, the NBS will be able to have an idea about the direction of price changes. So they do not go out all over the country or every market you can find to gather this kind of data. So they will go to representative markets, then they will choose representative goods to form a basket of food items that will be used to compute food deflation. So that's how they do it.
All right. Now, could you briefly discuss the ripple effect of this increase in the cost of commodities as we have it today, on other sectors like the manufacturing sector as well as the agricultural, and even small businesses? How does this increase in price affect them? And how also can the government help to actually, bring about the the reduction, basically, of these prices?
Demand issue is a demand side problem. That is, the first point of impact is on consumers, those who demand these commodities. Of course, the kind of situation we are in now is one where income is not decreasing, but prices keep increasing, and not just increasing very rapidly at alarming rate. So it is the consumer that would initially feel the effect of this increase in price, further weakening their purchasing power, because, like I said, a huge proportion of our income in this part of the world is spent on food. So it will eat deeper into the pockets of Nigerians. It's going to make sure that Nigerians won't be able to spend on other items, whether necessity or not, because food is the principal necessity. So if that is the case, first of all, we are diverting resources that would essentially be used to power other sectors in terms of purchasing to food. And it's going to, and if we do not have in the short term, we do not have increases in the supply of these food items, is going to mean that if it will keep driving, inflation will keep driving, and the vicious cycle will continue. Then on the businesses, like I said, once you increase the share of income that is spent on food, you are essentially reducing the share that is spent on other commodities, household commodities. So it means that purchasing sales by these companies will reduce. It will also have the eventual ripple effect of increasing unemployment, because they will need to cut their overhead. Then it will also, if there is no immediate intervention, it's going to drive more to it, because by the time inventories are building up for the firms, they will reduce production and productivity will drop, and GDP essentially will eventually reduce. So those are the ripple effects. So now government has a very critical role in this, in as much as the businesses themselves can shield themselves from these negative issues. The government also has a very strong role. First of all, there are short-term mitigating responsibility of government that they have to the consumers themselves, who, like I said, are the initial point of impact of food deflation. So government can come in with some form of subsidies. The previous administration did a lot of subsidy in agriculture, although there's a lot of debate out there, the outcome, which is essentially a Nigerian issue. So subsidy for food is important. Then if we do not have enough food, it also behoves of government to essentially look for how to feed these people, whether by importing more of this essential food, like flour for bread, rice and the rest of it. We did give themselves a short period. Okay, before we are able to find long-term solutions, let's look for short-term solutions to make sure that these price levels are brought down. So that is what they can do. Then eventually we'll need to invest in agriculture. We'll need to invest in infrastructure, because one of the reasons why we have these increases in prices is because of price of transportation. The roads are bad, and we have a lot of then if we have trains, that will even help the case. Then we also need to deal with the big elephant in the room, which is the cost of energy, which directly translates to inflation. So government has to do something about the cost of energy. It is not going away. They can't just hide their head in the sand and believe that it will go away on its own. No, there are things that they need to do. Thankfully, the Dangote refinery is coming on board, but will it reduce prices? As long as the price of fuel is high, we will continue to have food, especially food inflation. And so government can use subsidies to subsidize food and food production, not only consumption, but production. So if we are not going the way of fuel reduction in fuel prices, subsidy should move into agriculture. Heavy subsidy should move into agriculture by government.
All right, Dr. Abidemi, you mentioned something about businesses shielding themselves from the impact of this increase in prices of commodities. How do you suggest they go about that?
Okay, we are essentially in a what we call a stagflation, where you are having rising prices, which hit the demand side, and you have that is domestically. Then you have recession, which is reduction in productivity and production, which hits the supply side, that is businesses. So it's like a double whammy on the businesses. So one of the things they can do is to reduce overheads. We keep telling government to reduce cost of governance. Businesses also need to reduce cost of production by, first of all, addressing overheads. Through no fault of theirs, overhead is a very big issue for businesses, whether small or medium or large in Nigeria, because of you have to pay for a lot of things that essentially government is supposed to provide. So, but then there are other overheads that need to be cut this period. Then also learn to adjust your balance sheet, work on reducing debt. This is not the period to keep borrowing, because by the time you keep borrowing, you are paying ever increasing interest rates, and it's going to have negative effects also. Then the businesses also need to leverage on technology. This is a period where essentially technology basically is one of the most effective means of wading through difficult periods for business. So they need to leverage on technology to be able to reduce costs. So these are some of the ways that the businesses themselves can shield from this effect of rising inflation.
All right, Dr. Abidemi, before we go to the next segment of the show, talking about the currency market, I'll ask you this question. Do you think this issue of inflation has actually increased the poverty level in the Nigerian economy? And also, what strategies can consumers adopt to cope with the rising cost of commodities? Are there specific financial management techniques they could, adopt, such as consumer behavior changes and all of that? Are there things they should put in place? Maybe find alternative means to some of this food items, just to get by. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay, definitely inflation, like I said, it targets the pockets of consumers. So we already had at least 60% of Nigerians in multidimensional poverty before the current administration came in with its adjustment programs. So now we have more and more Nigerians falling into, because if you don't, the basic need is food, shelter. So if you can't afford these things, or if you are finding it very difficult to afford these things, you are essentially poor. So of course, definitely the inflation has driven a lot of Nigerians, a lot more Nigerians. I think there was a study that said about a very large proportion of Nigerians are entering into poverty on a daily basis, and the rate is increasing. So definitely inflation is driving a lot of Nigerians into poverty. Then there isn't much that can be done, because a lot of Nigerians are in the informal sector, where their own activities has their own capacity has very little influence on their lifestyle. If we were in a modern sector where we had a lot of freedom to also personally adjust our lifestyle, it could have been better. But a lot of Nigerians, for instance, are in the villages where all they know about in terms of sources of income is farming. And like other Nigerians, even in the cities, all they know about is going out on a daily basis to earn a living. So it is really very difficult to see how Nigerians as individuals can come in. Not that a lot of people have savings nowadays anyway. So a lot of people can fall back on savings, and even the daily income coming in is becoming more difficult to come back. So it essentially still boils down to government. Really, a developmental state is critical at this point in time in Nigeria. So the consumers have very little they can do, fortunately, to be able to shield themselves.
All right. Now, finally, to talk about still on this commodity market. Now, do you think that there are some other countries, because of course, Nigeria is not the first country to experience high inflation challenges, right? So are there blueprints? Are there other countries who have experienced it and, you know, and have been able to actually cope with it and eventually come out of the situation? Do you think Nigeria should learn from other countries?
I mentioned stagflation sometime. A lot of countries experienced stagflation in the early 70s. Even the UK, the US mentioned. Essentially, all we need is that is why the government, a very huge responsibility of taking us out of this situation rests with government. You know, when these economies experience this kind of situation where you have rising inflation that is also coupled with rising unemployment, it is a combination of policy you use. You use your fiscal policy, subsidies, tax cuts, and the rest, spending changes to be able to come out of it. Then, while also supporting it with your monetary policy, although monetary policy has limitation, but thankfully the kind of policy we run in Nigeria, the central bank is quite varied, and it's quite widespread. So there are a lot of areas where the central bank plays into. So it is a combination of policy. The government will need to sit up with its fiscal policy, cut costs. That is very important. Apparently, there's no going back on subsidy of fuel, so they need to now look for other ways, cut costs, make sure that the budgets target important and crucial areas of the economy. Then also monetary policy should look for ways to ensure that at least put a wedge on the sliding naira. Look for a way to ensure that the naira doesn't slide further. Also, of course, we have the issues of a backlog of foreign exchange that is causing a lot of issues between the central bank and foreign businesses in Nigeria. So there are a lot of issues, but policy is the way out, a combination of policy and the sincerity of government to really attack these issues.
Right, you just spoke about foreign exchange, and that is going to usher us into the next segment of the show, talking about the currency markets, but that will be right after the break. Stay with us, please.
Built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, Festac, in 1977. The theater holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged Festac 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company, mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theater complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souq Enlightenment.
Welcome back. You're still watching Market Insight, and we are on to the currency market. What exactly is going on there? We still have our guest, Dr. Abidemi Adegboye. He's an economics lecturer at the University of Lagos. He's still with us to discuss this aspect of the show. Now, the CEO of FMDQ Group, Bola Onodele Koko, in a report said that the CBN should explore creative ways to clear the foreign exchange backlog of about $5 billion. Now, the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, also revealed that the CBN is seeking about $1.5 billion from the World Bank to ease dollar shortage. Now, to you, Dr. Abidemi, what are your thoughts about this? You know, because this seems to be the major challenge when it comes to, even in the commodity market, foreign exchange is one of the major issues, the fact that there is a shortage of funds in our foreign reserve, you know, so we even have banks, you know, going to the black markets to get dollars, you know, for, you know, at very exorbitant prices. This is a big challenge. So now, do you agree with what the CEO of FMDQ is saying about, you know, the CBN trying to find creative ways to ensure that, you know, this backlog is dealt with? What are your thoughts about it?
Okay, yeah. The issue is that the Naira exchange rate, the problem is having now is multifaceted. The reasons why it is where it is, and how it can be, the issue can be addressed. While on the one hand, the basic issue why currency would slide is because we are not selling enough in the international market. And so our currency is not going to be powerful. That is on the one hand. Then on the other hand, there are the implications of this, currency depreciation, both on the economy and on policy. As for the CBN, I think they are struggling. They are trying their best to ensure that they manage the little foreign exchange you have, and also to maintain their reputation. All of this backlog of foreign exchange to foreign companies we are talking about is they are guaranteed by the central bank. So if the central bank does not show some level of commitment to ensuring that these issues are resolved with this company, it's going to plunder the reputation and the integrity of the central bank. So they are trying to balance the situation, but then we need there are clear quick wins situations where the government can, the policymakers can go in and really help to address this Naira issue. Our biggest import is fuel. So if the issue of fuel import is significantly addressed, cutting fuel import by 50% will have a very huge impact on the central bank. So the CBN, I wouldn't say, we wouldn't say they shouldn't meet their responsibilities to the foreign companies by paying off the backlog. But then in a recession, you need to manage the little resources you have. And unfortunately, one of the critical resources in Nigeria is not the Naira, it is the dollar, because of the way our economy is. No matter how we want to wish it away, the dollar is a critical currency for Nigeria to survive. So the CBN needs to really manage its. I would favor not focusing too much on meeting the backlog, but ensuring that you manage in the short term, manage the foreign exchange you have, so that you can stabilize the economy. Then you cannot go back and address the issue. Of course, if the CBN has other strategic ways of addressing these backlog issues, fine, can go ahead and do that. But that should not include using all our little forex to now address the backlog.
Very well. Currently, the current exchange rate at the black market is about 1,350. We can see that these prices in the black market keep increasing, and that is because we have a shortage of fund in our foreign reserve, in our forex reserve. So this is almost as though the CBN is between the devil and the red blue sea. Trying to increase the amount of foreign exchange we have in our reserve, at the same time trying to clear out the backlog. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay, the exchange rate is really in the black market is something else actually. We thought we had seen the end of the slide last year, but it has started a fresh regime this period, sliding quite rapidly. And like I said, the issues I mentioned are behind it. Our high dependence on import, like you mentioned, even the banks go to the black market because they need it. If we were to import it so much, nobody will need the dollar for anything essentially. But if you keep importing and importing, of course, you need to pay up for buying foreign goods, so you need dollars. Then the CBN, who is in charge of the foreign exchange in the country, is seeking to manage the situation. The official rate which I don't even know if anybody works with nowadays. It's 8.19. I checked the other day, and but even the CBN will sell at over 8,000 naira. So the CBN, thankfully, the current CBN is actually up and doing. They seem to be up and doing and concerned about the slide of the naira. They are doing all sorts of restructuring, and they are doing making sure that there are more foreign currency inflows into the economy. But like I said, yes, as much as they are doing that, it shouldn't be that it is to, well, like I said, they need their reputation to be kept intact. But then we are in a very difficult situation where they should prioritize stabilizing the naira. That should be the priority in the short term. That should be the priority in the short term. Although if you are not meeting backlog, companies may have wrong, they develop some kind of resentment for Nigeria. But that what we need now, the most important thing we need now is to ensure that the naira is stabilized, and that should be the focus of the CBN.
All right, very well. Recently, there was this report about the Nigerian airline, foreign airlines, seeking to, or being forced by the issues in Nigeria, to suspend flights in Nigeria if the government does not find a lasting solution to the trapped funds. Now, one of the biggest tasks currently before the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, as Festus Keyamo, is to ensure that more airlines do not suspend their operations from the Nigerian market. Now, according to the International Air Transport Association, IATA, the Nigerian government holds the highest amount of airline trapped funds in the world, with over 27 foreign carriers operating in the country. Now, data obtained from the IATA showed that the funds had risen to about $792 million at the end of last year. Now, this is quite disturbing. Now, this is, we are going back to the issue of clearing out the backlog, right? But I would like your thoughts on this particular issue about airlines, leaving Nigeria, and what would be the implication on our economy. I wanted to just briefly, analyze that, as well as, add up your final thoughts on this issue, before we round off the show.
Yeah, it has been on for a while now. The trapped funds of foreign airline. But if you really look at the situation, not too many countries do this kind of business model that Nigeria does. We should look for a way of moving out of airlines demanding foreign payment from Nigerians who are traveling from Nigeria. So that is what actually brought us to this place. And again, you won't blame them too much, because on the other hand, the naira is highly unstable, so they wouldn't want to keep their funds in naira, so they'll be requesting for dollar. But in the long term, government should look for a way to ensure that business transactions of foreign airlines in Nigeria is done in naira as it is done in other places. So that is a long-term fix. But in the short term, yeah, not just the airlines leaving.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abidemi Adegboye. Thank you very much for your time on the show. That's basically all we can take on Market Insights today. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Adesua Iromoseli. Have a beautiful day.